Welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Living, with me, Mark Candelaria. I am an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I am the founder and now partner of a fabulous 20-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country. We have hosted tours over the last 20 years to Italy, Spain, and soon Napa. And in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. We are excited to now be in our second season, and our podcast is about all the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspire living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture to all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. So sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired every week. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Because Inspiring Living is all about the people and the organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. This is how Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything. Welcome, everyone, and thanks again for listening to our podcast, Inspiring Living. Welcome to Season 2, and today I have a very, very special guest. I think we're all getting a little sick of this election, and I think this might just change your whole perspective on the world and your world, and I really invite you to take some time to listen to this podcast. This is a gentleman, Patrick McLaughlin. I know many of you in Arcadia know Patrick. He's a great guy. He's been fighting for his life, literally, for many years when you hear this podcast. But what is so amazing is when you spend some time with him and really get deep into his story, you really see what a positive person this guy is, despite all of his challenges. And it kind of just really wakes you up to the fact that, we really don't have any reason to sweat the small stuff, what happens with this election and all these things. That life's going to go on, and, none of that stuff's ultimately going to matter that much to how our day goes. And so I think it's smart to just take a little time after you listen to this podcast to really sit down, maybe make a few notes to yourself personally about what can you do to change the way you look at every day when you wake up. And, just the fact that you do wake up, I think sometimes is quite an accomplishment. And for Patrick, it most definitely is. So I'm going to stop right here because I just want you to get right into the podcast and give it a listen. I really think it'll make a great impact on you. I also want to say a big thank you to Patrick for taking the time to come over, spend the hour that we did recording this podcast. We had lunch a week or so before that, and everyone knows his story that knows him, but I think to have that extra time to really go into it was just quite a gift. So thank you so much, Patrick. I really, really, really appreciate what you did and what you're doing, and carry on, my brother. You're a good man. We do our best to inspire living in everything we do, from our podcast to our cooking classes to our tours, and of course with our Candelaria design homes. Okay, have a great week, everyone, and let's all live our lives with love, compassion, grace, and positivity. Okay, here we go. Today I have the sincere honor of introducing someone I have admired from afar for some time. We have been good buds on social media, and we have supported each other and inspired each other at different times through some of our personal challenges and battles. That said, my battles are a pale comparison to the man's challenges and battles, many of which he still fights every moment. You see, my guest today is fighting brain cancer and has been for some time. But he is doing so in a way that is truly, truly inspiring. Today is my honor and sincere pleasure to introduce my podcast listeners to Patrick McLaughlin. Welcome, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. So we had a bite to eat the other day over at the Henry, and I ran into you maybe a year ago at a restaurant really quick, but we've never spent any time together, and it was just great to spend an afternoon. We spent, an hour and a half?
It was great. It was good just to get together and
we had a lot of fun.
catch up.
So, I've known you for years, and we followed each other on social media, and you kind of gave me the lowdown on your life because I kind of talked you, coerced you into doing this podcast with me.
Yeah, should I apologize now or later?
No, and I've known you through other friends. I mean, we got a lot of friends in common. We've just never had the time to really meet, and so. It's cool to get to know you, and to be honest with you, your story and your life and the things you have been through are just hard for any of us to imagine. And what's even more amazing is, given all these hurdles, you maintain the most positive attitude. That's what I always like when I follow you on social media, is you're always so positive. And I gravitate towards people like that. But when you add your story to it and what you've been through, it just makes it that much more meaningful to me.
Well, I appreciate the comment, Mark, but I always tell people, come live with us for 24 hours. You might change your mind.
Yeah, that's true with all of us, I think, to a certain degree, right? So tell us about yourself. Where are you from? And tell us about your journey as the young Patrick McLaughlin and how you got to Arizona.
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I remember. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm a Southern California boy. I was adopted as a baby by two of the most amazing people you would ever imagine. They both have loved me unconditionally my whole life. They've been there to mentor me, guide me. Growing up in Southern California, my folks live in Torrance. They lived in Manhattan Beach before they got married, and which was my affinity to Manhattan Beach. I'm a beach guy. I love it. I miss it.
Are you a surfer?
No, not so much a surfer. You might get me on a longboard with a fishing pole and a 6-pack of beer, but
you're the right kind of guy. Totally.
my love was beach volleyball. I played since I was a kid, and I miss it. But obviously, I'm not doing much of that anymore.
Right. So from Manhattan Beach, somehow you got to Arizona. How did that happen?
Yeah, I went to high school at a private high school in Southern California, and I was always an athlete. Baseball was I played baseball, football, and soccer in high school. I'm not one of these dads that or guys that live vicariously through, I was the greatest. But I was a pitcher in baseball, and I had a chance to play collegiate, but I ended up injuring my arm really bad. So I was done.
Yeah.
And I wanted out of California at the time, which I think many people can relate to today. But at that time, I wanted to get away. I came with a friend out to U of A on a road trip, and I asked him if we could stop at ASU to see a high school friend. And we did. And I was like, I'm done. I'm going to apply. I applied. I got in. Then I said, now what?
Yeah.
I convinced 3 of my best buddies to apply, and we all got in and came out to ASU.
Well, your story is pretty similar to mine. I was going to school in Boulder, and came down here for spring break and walked down Palm Walk or whatever it's called, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing in Boulder?
Yeah,
it's a great place.
It was a unique time.
Yeah,
it was.
So what year was that roughly?
So I graduated in 1991 from ASU. It took me 5 years.
Yeah, that's not bad. I still haven't graduated, so you're doing way better than me. So that was 91.
91.
So then you met your bride Holly, and where did you guys meet? How did you guys meet?
So we're fast forwarding. After college, I went back home and I told my folks I wanted to live on the beach for a year and do nothing.
Okay.
And they weren't too happy about it, but I worked my entire collegiate time valet parking cars at the Arizona Biltmore.
Awesome.
Unbelievable, until I crashed 3 cars and got fired in one night. But then when I went back home, I said, I'm going to work the rest of my life. So I got 2 of my buddies and myself. We're bartenders at LAX airport, making a lot of money at 21 years old.
Yep.
And we just lived on the beach on the Strand in Hermosa and had the time of our life.
Oh my God, that had to be fun.
And then after a year, you got sick of asking people if they wanted a double for $1 more and wearing those polyester vests. And we all decided to get real about life. And I had a job opportunity which required me to move out away from the beach.
Gotcha. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was interesting. There was three of us. Between the three of us, I think we had a total combination of zero experience. And my buddy got into a headhunter. That was an executive headhunter, recruiter.
Yep.
And she said, "No, I'm sorry, you don't have any experience." Long story short, he showed up at our office with some flowers. She goes, "All right, come on back. I'm going to, pull out," because she told us, "You got to wait 5 years.
Yeah.
Then call me."
Yeah. The flowers did the trick, though.
Yeah, well, she said, "I'll give you," back then, no computers, no cell phones, so
Yep.
used a Rolodex.
Yep.
Pulled out the hardest job, and for him, it was selling law books. She said, "If you could get a second interview, I'll work with you." Not only did he get the second interview, within 6 months, he was the number one guy in the company.
There you go.
So I'm like, if my buddy can do that, I can do that.
Yep.
So I called her, and she goes, "Sorry, your buddy Steve's
Flowers,
in
buddy.
Monopoly."
Flowers. Bring the flowers.
So I brought candy.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
And she goes, "All right, I will give you a second. I'll give you the same thing." And she goes, "I'll pull out this opportunity. It's American Express. You're 22 years old. Their average age is 32. You have no experience. If you get the second interview, I'll work with you." And it ended up that I got the job. They were one of the first companies that had their workforce work virtual.
Interesting.
And so they told me I had to leave. I could take any job. I could live in any city that didn't have a beach. Because they were worried that I would see a nice day and I'm going to go down to the beach instead of work.
They checked you out.
And so, they really did. And so I came out to Arizona, and they're like, "Why Arizona?" I said, "That's the only other place I knew."
Yep.
And it was a good move.
Yeah, that's a great move. So back to Arizona, you come, and let's get back to Holly. You met her somewhere along the way.
So I grew my job at American Express to where I was in senior management, and all that meant was I traveled all the time.
Yep.
I was fortunate enough that I could.
How old were you then?
I was 20. I left when I was 28. After I left when I was 30. When I first got into management, I was 26.
Yeah, okay.
And I built my first house in North Scottsdale. Had it built, excuse me. And since I'm colorblind, I hired a designer, and I wanted faux finish walls.
Oh, there you go.
I come home from a trip, and I hear these girls laughing in my house, and it was the gal that worked in my house and her business partner, this gal named Holly. And I just fell for it right there. But she was going through a divorce, and we ended up just being friends for a little while, and then we started dating, and things took off.
Happened.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Those interior designers can be
Pains in the what?
pretty appealing.
No, she's awesome. If I had to say, we're very opposite in a lot of ways, and sometimes they say opposites attract, but it was cool. It was a lot of fun. We have been married 20 years last December.
You told me where you got married.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. We got married up at a place that called Enchantment in Sedona.
Was just there 3-4 days ago.
And it was awesome. It was in December, so the whole place was decked out.
Oh, that's
it
cool.
was just really cool. It was a really we just nothing against getting married locally, but we just didn't want people to come to a wedding and then drive home.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do something.
That's why I got married in Italy.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say you get that better than anybody. I mean, but the thing is, Mark, they tell you 25 to 30% won't come.
Yeah.
And we had 300 people, and 2% decided not to come.
Oh,
and I was like, really?
Even up in Enchantment.
Well, that says it all.
Well,
right?
yeah, there you go.
I mean, so in last year we celebrated 20 years. I was actually
good for you.
I was in the hospital. My brain surgery was on the 3rd, and we got married our anniversary was on the 5th.
Wow.
So at least I pulled through to celebrate 20 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned to me when we spoke the other day and a little bit before today that Holly also had a young son that was quite a young man and quite an athlete at the time.
Absolutely. When I met Holly, I realized she had a son, and he was 5 when I met Holly. One of the things I respect about Holly more than anything is that she did not introduce me to him for 5 months.
Yeah.
I had a lot of respect for her to do that, because I'm not a proponent of getting into some kid's head and then all of a sudden disappearing.
Right.
And I also looked at it as a blessing.
Yeah.
I love children, and I looked at it that I was fortunate enough to try and make some influence on his life.
Right. Yeah. So then soon after your marriage, you and Holly also had your first child together. That was Jack, right?
Yeah, Big Jack. He's our middle child. He's 20 years old. And
It goes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mentioned I was adopted. And the one thing, I never really had extreme curiosity of who my parents were, biological parents were.
Right.
But I never knew what it was like if I looked like somebody.
Huh.
The minute Jack popped out, game over. I mean, he was like a mini me.
He's mini Pat.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
That's cool.
But he's in college out in California and just hopefully enjoying his experience like I did when I was in college.
Yep. Where's he at, did you say?
Well, he right now is in junior college because he wants to transfer to either Chapman or USC next year.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So now you have two boys, Austin and Jack, and Holly really wanted a girl, and God answered your prayers with your sweet Marley, right?
Let me tell you, God answered all our prayers, not just Marley, but she really, really wanted a little girl, and we tried and tried, and for a lot of reasons, we just couldn't get pregnant, and then out of the blue, we got pregnant, and
happened to be a girl.
She knows. So we had a deal where we sat down, Jack, Austin, Holly, and I, to decide the baby's name. And we agreed that whoever had the majority would get it. Well, Holly knows I love reggae music. I grew up with reggae music. And so I wanted her name to be Marley.
Yep.
Holly wanted the name to be Ava. Well, the boys jumped on the Marley round really quick.
And that's it.
And there you go. And so her name is Marley Ava.
That's cute. So you have a beautiful young girl. She's 2 years old, and she's then diagnosed with brain cancer, and was given what I understand to be 10 hours to live. I mean, how do you deal with something like that?
I still ask myself that, Mark. It's hard. Holly can't even talk about it 13 years later.
I mean, let me ask you this, without being too nosy. I mean, a 2-year-old really can't tell you. I guess she can talk a little bit. So was she having how did you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. We would vacation back in Manhattan Beach every summer, so we would be gone there until literally 2 days before school would start.
Right.
But Marley being 2, she was complaining that she had a neck owie. She can't sit there and say, Dad, I have a headache. And the other thing that we thought was not right was she would want to take 3 hot showers a day. If you remember when your kids were 2 years old, get them in the shower was an act of God.
Yeah.
And so we just thought we had a clean freak as a kid. When we got back to Arizona, we went to her pediatrician. And her pediatrician said, look, you have 2 older brothers. You have a summer at the beach. She's probably been roughhousing and might have a sore neck. Give her some Motrin.
Yep.
We said, okay. And we're not upset. We weren't upset once we found out what it was, because if a pediatrician thought every neck owie was brain cancer, they would go out of business.
Yep.
So a week later, she started vomiting profusely, and we ran down to PCH. And after a bunch of tests, it was this horrible. You never want the chief of staff of the hospital and one of the main surgeons to be walking and asking you and your wife to go into a separate room to talk.
Oh, jeez.
And they said, your baby girl is not going home today. She's got 10 hours to live, because it was blocking the absorption of her spinal fluid. Her tumor was 2/3 the size of her head.
Wow.
And Holly just ran. I just fell to my knees in tears. What do we do? We prayed and prayed, and we didn't have a lot of options because we had to do something in 10 hours. And it was on Halloween, 2007. Wow. We met her surgeon that morning. 13-hour surgery, not even thinking cancer. In the middle of the surgery, he comes out, or the nurse comes out and says, yeah, by the way, it's a horrible type of brain cancer. Oh, and we're like, can this get any worse? She ended up surviving that surgery. The next day in ICU, we lived there for 2.5 months. I'd come home for the boys. Holly would stay the night. Her whole team came running in the next day and said, look, this is crazy. You look at it before MRI, this massive tumor, and then you look at the post-MRI a day later, and it was nothing.
Amazing.
And so she had to learn to walk and talk and
everything all over again.
But so what?
Huh.
We had our baby.
That's just crazy. So through all that, then, meanwhile, your career is taking off, right? I mean, you were busy.
Things were good.
So tell me a little bit about that and what you do and what you do now.
Yeah, I still ask myself, what do I want to do when I grow up at 52 years old? I look at it that I just feel like I was never meant to work for anybody but myself. Have always had an entrepreneurial spirit from
Yep.
the time I started mowing people's lawns at 13 years old with a push mower and everything else. And so I did corporate America for 10 years, and then I got into some investment banking where I helped become I was part of a management team with 2 different companies to take them public. That wasn't very fun because your stock's tied up. You're not the main person.
Right.
And so then I left that and went out and got some licenses in the finance world. And I have 2 different companies. One is that we do estate planning insurance for anyone from low end to high end, but we're sitting there helping them come up and figure out a good financial plan.
Yep.
But then what I did was, my company is called Strategic Benefit Group, and what we did there was, what we do is we go out and enroll corporate America in their health benefits. So when you work for a big company,
Yep.
you get open enrollment once a year.
Yep.
Well, they come to us, and I send in enrollers, benefit counselors, to sit down with their employees and walk them through their benefits.
Yep.
And that's been really, really fun. And
Excellent.
COVID is kind of put a little damper to it, but we just go with the flow. I mean, we now still do it, but we do it via Zoom or whatever.
Right. So given the story that you told me about Marley, I mean, you're doing well. Your family's now 3 kids. You're cranking. You're making money. I mean, when the situation with Marley happened, I'm sure it had a profound effect on how you looked at life every day after that.
Absolutely.
Right?
100% it did.
Yeah.
There was a time, and first of all, Holly and I have a very deep faith. We're Christian.
Yep.
I think it was God's way of saying, Pat, you got to slow down.
Yeah.
I was caught up back in the days of when you start making money, you're like, wow.
Especially at that age.
Yeah, especially at that age.
Yeah. You think you're invincible.
You really do. You had to have the Armani suits, the Rolexes, the nice cars. And when you're dealing with something, and that was my first thing to deal with, was my daughter, like something that big. None of that stuff matters.
No. It doesn't matter at all. And I've had my share of wanting all those things, and we have a nice house and all that, but it really, I mean, you can't take it with you. It doesn't matter. You want to be comfortable, but I think there's a point where it's just ridiculous. It's just like,
here's what sums it up. The late Billy Graham, he said this numerous times, that he's pastored a bunch of funerals or celebrations of life.
Yep.
Not once has he ever seen a U-Haul follow the hearse.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's totally right.
And I sit here, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting or having a fine lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not about what you have, but it's about who you are.
Yeah.
And how you treat people and how you expect to be treated or hope to be treated. And don't get me wrong, I'm a broken man. From a faith perspective, I say I'm a sinner.
Yeah.
And I'm broken, and I have learned so many things in life that are so much more important than money.
So much more valuable, right?
Oh, my God.
And you don't have to insure them or store them. That's what I tell them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I think people get so caught up in that stuff. And, to me, just the other day when we had lunch, that hour and a half that we spent together, that was one of the best moments of that whole month for me. And as I look back, it'd probably be one of the best moments that I've had in my life. And I know it was just a simple lunch, but I always look at things as, if you're open to good things will come. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I think that what happens is you get so caught up in these things in life that they distract you from the good things that are all right around you that you don't even notice.
Well, it's not only do they distract you, but you start getting used to things a certain way. And Mark, you and I both know people in this town that have made it, but then they lost it. Then they lost it.
Trust me.
And
I've made it and lost it. I know what that's like.
Sure. But I would imagine your character is a lot stronger now as a person because when you go through that and you go through hard times, you have a choice.
Yeah.
You can sit there and have a pity party and say, poor me. Or you can sit there and say, okay, first of all, acknowledge what's going on.
Yep.
Did you have anything to do with it? Are you causing any of the problem? And how can I change? And Mark, you're a type A personality also.
Yep.
It's hard it is really hard to sit back and say, oh my gosh, that was because of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm over that stuff. Mark, if I blow it, I'm the first person to try and come and say sorry.
Yeah.
And I say that, not that I'm a great guy. It's just what I've learned.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing for me. I mean, I've just learned that, you just got to keep going and you can't quit. There's going to be ups and downs. And, when the downs come, I've just learned to not let it just bury me. I mean, some people get, like you said, the pity party. And they just get so consumed by it. And what I've learned to do when I get in those situations is just quickly look at the little things around me that are just fantastic and great. They could be the smallest little things. I mean, and just focus again on the good that's around you, because it's there. You just have to look for it.
Sure.
But it's there. But it's easy to not see it, and just everything becomes dark and gloomy and endless. You can't get out of it.
I was having a little pity party a few years ago when my daughter had cancer. Then she had cancer again at 11.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about that. So, yeah, she gets diagnosed with thyroid cancer at age 11, right?
Yeah, talk about another kick in the gut, Mark. When she had brain cancer, the type of cancer she had would not react to chemotherapy. They typically do not want to radiate kids under 5.
Right.
She was 2. After a lot of discussion, we chose to do targeted radiation. So when she was 11... and going in for her MRI just to make sure everything's good, they did an ultrasound on her neck. And I said, what are you doing? And the result of that ultrasound was they found that she had thyroid cancer. The rationale for it was because she did radiation. Think of it like a firework. The centrifuge blows up, then the scatter got on her thyroid. And I will tell you, Marley's 15. It is the meanest thing somebody could do to a teenager is take out their thyroid.
Wow.
It's hard, but Marley doesn't sit there and complain. She's just happy-go-lucky.
And she beat that.
Yeah, she beat it. She did.
I want to meet her.
She wants to meet you, ironically, because she wants to come work for you. She wants to be an architect.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's
see,
hilarious.
That's how these things work.
Yeah, and I'm being dead serious. She's like, when can I go see Mr. Candelaria?
How old is she right now?
She's 15.
That's perfect. So I'll tell you a quick story. We hired someone when she was 15, and she was our office girl. She wanted to be an architect. And in that course of time, from 15 to 18, she got into architecture school, got her license, came back, worked for us, started her own firm, and moved back to Europe. That's where she was from. So
really,
yeah, it happens.
And it all started with you.
It all started as being my office.
Isn't that cool?
Girl.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's always those little steps, right?
Yeah. But Mark, I wanted to say something. You mentioned us getting together. I felt the same way. It was really powerful, our time together, because I felt we were genuine. But if you ask Holly and I, what is it that we love to do? Yeah, that's it. We don't need to go to bars and stuff. Way. We sit there and say, whether it's going out to a nice supper or having it at our own home or a friend's home, have a few bottles of wine, good food, and good friends. Yep. That makes us happy.
That's how we are, too. It doesn't take much. I don't need to go to big ball games or the galas. I mean, we'll do them to help out and support, but we're exactly the same way. We love just sitting around having a great dinner and just chit-chatting.
Well, I hardly wait to try your gourmet dishes over at your commercial kitchen. Yeah.
So you went through the Marley situation, and then a couple years after that, in 2013, you and Holly were hit by a drunk driver, which resulted in all of your blood sources to your stomach being severed. I understand you had a 14-hour surgery, and you now have 2 stomachs and live with a feeding tube.
Yeah, you want to try and outdo that one?
No, no. I mean, I look at your list here and I go, okay. Yeah. So that's just 2 years later, right?
Yeah, that was just 2 years later. We were literally sitting in her car, going to pick up some food for supper to come back. 5 minutes away, we were in Manhattan Beach and left our kids at the time, thank goodness. And we were at the bottom of a hill and we were waiting to turn right. And a guy coming down the bottom of a hill going 75 miles an hour plowed into us. And that impact at a dead stop, which I found out later, 3 or 4 days later, was it severed, literally cut in half all my blood sources to my stomach.
Jeez. That's just amazing. I don't know how you survived.
Well, I mean, I knew I was in trouble when I was up at UCLA for this one, and all of a sudden 15 white coats come flying into my room, saying, just wanted to see the anomaly. And they said, Mr. McLaughlin, your stomach's necrotic. I go, that's above my pay grade. They said, it's dying. Huh. And your body was giving you signs that you better get in here. And so that, the solution was to build two stomachs, one that's the size of a prune or maybe like a plum. And that is where my esophagus goes.
Okay.
And then I have my old stomach that's hooked up to my intestines, so both stomachs share the intestines. And that old stomach is where I have my feeding tube, because you cannot just go transplant blood, take blood from one source and put it in another. So they were hoping I would pick up collateral blood sources. So I still have a feeding tube 7 years later.
Wow.
But I'm allowed to eat now. So,
Yeah, I noticed you were eating pretty good at lunch
yeah,
every day.
it all depends. Lunch, I usually can eat. And then, but honestly, it's meal by meal. Sometimes I just have no idea. I'm a cheap date, I'll tell you that. I usually order off the kids' menu.
I bet you it's one of those things, again, where you appreciate every bite and you appreciate every meal.
Yeah, well, Mark, it wasn't just a one and done surgery, unfortunately.
I don't know. I'm reading here 38 surgeries after that.
Yeah, it was ironic.
38.
I was getting ready for number 38.
I haven't even had that many haircuts in my life.
Let me tell you.
That's crazy.
I was going to say something funny, but I'll stop.
Well, we both have the same barber.
Yeah, exactly.
Yours may be for different reasons than mine.
Yeah, my hair's trying to grow back. See, this is one of those things that I have chemo brain. I totally forgot what you asked. 38 surgeries. So I was at UCLA getting ready for number 38. I wear prescription glasses, and I had just got my prescriptions re-upped. And I was still squinting, and I was having these really bad headaches. So I asked my main doctor, I said, this is what's going on. Mind you, as you probably know, brain cancer is not hereditary.
Right.
And so we did an MRI on a Friday, and on a Monday he asked me to come in, and he said, you have a tumor. Do you want to do it here at UCLA? I need to refer you out. I go,
this is after the 38 surgeries.
Yeah, well, this was getting ready for. The reason why I was seeing him was getting ready for number 38, which I still haven't had. I'm good with that, but I said no. I'd rather. I have Mayo and Barrows out in Phoenix, and so the first thing I did was I reached out to my daughter's brain surgeon, a guy named Dr. Dave Shaffron. If some of your listeners will know him, he's a great guy. He looked at the scan. He had his radiologist look at it, and they were just like, we just think it's just a benign tumor. Mm-hmm. But they said, Pat, we're pediatric specialists. So then Dave Shaffron said, Pat, one of my good buddies heads up neurosurgery at the Mayo Clinic. And I got in. He saw me within 3 days, and he walked in the room and asked Holly and I, how do you like to be communicated with? I said, square.
Yeah.
But I also was thinking it was nothing.
Yeah.
He goes, that's brain cancer. I said, are you kidding me? He goes, Pat. He could tell without doing a biopsy.
Yeah.
And that was right before Thanksgiving last year.
Yeah.
And I said, what are we doing? He goes, you're going to have awake brain surgery. I said, can you repeat that? He goes, you're going to be awake. Don't worry, we're going to knock you out, but when we get into your brain, you're going to be awake.
Huh.
Mark, I've never had a seizure in my life. He got into my head, and right away, I had a massive seizure. They calmed it down. He got a 1/8 of the tumor. I think that's what it was. And then all of a sudden, I had another massive seizure. And this one, I remember. I remember shaking, being under like this tarp. And they said, close him up, close him up. And so, unfortunately, it was an unsuccessful surgery. I still have a tumor. It's called a glioma. It's not a glioblastoma, but it's the baby sister of a glioblastoma. And our goal is to hopefully never have it become a glioblastoma.
Yeah.
Because they've already told me that more than likely I won't survive this.
Huh. So you know that every day that you wake up.
I do.
Every day is just a total gift.
I do.
Yep.
I look at every day. People say, Pat, aren't you freaking out? I said, don't get me wrong. I really want to walk my daughter down the aisle, just not at 17.
Yeah.
I want to see my boys flourish. I'd love to be a grandfather one day, and I don't know that that's in my future. But I can tell you, Mark, I'm sure you've had people that pass away instantly.
Yep.
The blessing of this for me is I get to tell people that I know how much I love them.
Right.
A couple people I get to try and make amends with.
Yep.
And I get to expedite my bucket list.
Yep.
And because of my faith, I look at it as I'm going to win either way.
Yeah. No, you're looking at it the right way, for sure. And I think you are very blessed that you get that opportunity to do what you just said, because a lot of people don't.
Oh,
You know?
a lot of people don't. Mark, I try to be a positive person. I'm not always that positive, but I try.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody with my faith that runs around, because I was Bible beat when I was younger, and I was like, I didn't like that. But I try knowing, again, I told you I'm a broken guy, because I'm not going to sit here like I'm holier than thou.
Right.
But I believe that I know where I'm going to be going.
Yeah.
And when you have that faith and that feeling, yes, I would miss being a grandpa, but I know I'm going to be with my family again one day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had my own near-death experiences, which we've kind of talked about on this podcast many times. And, I look at life every day the same way. I get distracted, obviously, with everything that's going on all the time. But trust me, I've got plenty of reminders to know how special every day and every moment truly is. But on the flip side of that, when my day does come, I've been there and I felt it, and I'm like, it's going to be the best, longest, most peaceful, nourishing nap I've ever had in my life.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not afraid of it.
No.
I'm not afraid of it at all. And, we know what the experience here on earth is all about. And it's just my belief that there's something more waiting for us. If you just look at the fact we're looking at the Camelback Mountain right now, we're looking at this view. There's something way more than just an election tonight.
I'm sorry, I don't buy that two rocks collided and all of a sudden you have DNA.
Right?
To me, and I'm not putting down people that have that belief, but I'm just lucky enough that I have my faith.
Yeah.
And
I'm not saying it's a guy in a white beard and a cloak. I just think it's an energy. It's an energy. It's a force. And in my belief, there's the light and there's the darkness.
Sure.
And it's while we're in this realm, we have a choice.
Yeah, Mark, when you're talking about the good and the bad, my faith is in Jesus Christ, and He's my Savior, and the Bible tells you the way to get to heaven is through Him.
Yep.
And that's. But you think about even Christianity. There's good and bad.
Oh yeah.
There's
good and bad in everything.
Absolutely. And even if somebody doesn't have a faith, what I try to live my life by is a golden rule.
Yeah.
And that can be regardless of your faith, or if you even don't have a faith.
Yeah.
Just you want to be treated the way you want to treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah. And that's what
I wish I was great at it, but I'm not.
Well, no, you're pretty damn good at it. One of my taglines always is just, everyone's trying to do this momentous thing out there with their life. And it's like, you know what? Just do the small things right every single day and every single minute. They add up to the momentous thing you're looking for to do.
That's right.
And some people can't do the little small things. So just open the door for someone, say hello, say, if we all collectively did that every day, think how different the world would be.
Oh, Mark,
right?
Like I mentioned to you at lunch the other day, one of my dear friends, a mentor of mine, a guy named Chuck Harrison, he passed away last year of Alzheimer's. He was in his mid-70s, and it was a hard thing for me, but one of the things that he always challenged me to do was, literally, Pat, I want you to go out when you're in public and say hi to 10 new people.
Yeah, I like when you
just say hi. But don't expect them to say hi back.
Yep.
Some might be scared, but just keep walking.
Yep.
And let me know after you've done it 10 or 15 times what your experience is. Mark, it changes your life, but it also changes other people.
Yeah.
Some people are like, hey, creep, leave me alone. But there's some people that have stopped me and said, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have anybody to say hello to, is what people have shared that with me.
Yeah.
And I did that when I was in the hospital. I challenged everybody in the hospital, and it was so fun.
I love that story, and it's so true. I think what I tell people is try to do 10 things every day that is just an act of kindness, and watch how your life is different in 10 days.
Mark, I would challenge people to do one thing these days.
Exactly. So meanwhile, through all of this, your lovely bride, Holly, given everything that you've been through, she's fighting multiple sclerosis for many years. You told me that. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah. Right after Marley was born, she was I think that might have been before. I can't remember. But she was diagnosed with MS. And for the first few years, we realized it was really bad. She had a lot of lesions on her brain. But Holly's a pretty dynamic person, as you've met her.
Oh, yeah.
And she has a deep faith. And we tell everybody we love hard. We fight hard, but we love hard. But she just said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do MS.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit back and let MS do me. So,
Yeah.
I mean, she's on her Peloton bike 4 or 5 days a week. She's an interior designer. She's, because I haven't worked a lot this year because
Everything you're going through.
everything I'm going through. So she just goes and goes.
Yeah.
And, she has her moments where she slows down, but she's defying odds.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Huh. Yeah, no, I there was no way I had even an inkling of that till you told me that, because I just spoke to her a couple weeks ago, and she's trying to learn CAD now.
Yeah, she every day she's in learning CAD. I'm like, God bless you, honey. At 22 years old, I'm kidding.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So, your diagnosis on this was about a year ago. I think I ran into you in January or something like that.
Yeah, right after I had
restaurant.
surgery.
Yeah,
Right?
that's right. It was right after you had surgery, right? So you talked about your faith a little bit. I mean, I think that's a really, really important part of what has gotten you through all this. Not only you, but your whole family,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And it makes a big difference, because I think when you focus on your faith and reaching out to God, your mind and energy is not going elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, Mark, I look at it like this. When you're thinking about when we die and we go to heaven and have eternity,
Yep.
our life on this planet is a blink of an eye.
Yeah, it's a total blink of an eye.
And that helps me significantly when issues arise.
Yeah.
Because I sit there and really quickly think, is this something I want to tackle? And unfortunately, I still tackle some bad things and against good advice.
Yeah.
But you realize it's just a blink of an eye. And what can we do to make the most of it while we're here?
Right.
And I haven't always been like that. I mean, let me tell you,
you have every reason to have that perspective, given what you've been through. And that's what I always tell people is, don't sweat the small stuff. It's not worth the time and energy.
Yeah.
I mean, don't let it consume you, because it's worthless.
And Mark, a lot of people ask me all the time too, like, Pat, or do you just get sick of people when they're complaining about, oh, my nail broke and all that? But I don't. And
Yeah.
I'm never gonna. If you ever see me saying, "Shame on you, I have brain cancer," come smack me.
I've never heard that from you.
But I look at life that if a couple has a little boy and he broke his pinky toe, and that was the biggest issue in their life, it should be a big issue.
Yep.
Right? I'm not going to sit there and say, "Oh, you have no idea."
Right.
No, because they need to be able to learn how to get through that issue, which is a big deal to them.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And I remember those days, and I miss those days, right? Because it's just like, I don't know. Sometimes you wonder if there's, we used to think there was a black cloud following us, but we're over that. That's a pity party.
Yeah. No, sometimes I think that, if you truly believe God is in control, I think God, in the world, the universe, yeah, it throws you some things, some curveballs that are just hard to even imagine why they're thrown your way. But when I've looked back on those curveballs in my life, it's like, okay, I get it now. I've learned something from this. I mean, I don't know if you feel that way, but I that's how I've kind of taken it.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's the curveball. Okay, what am I going to do with it this time? I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to do this, and I may not get through it. I mean, I may not. And when Isabel and it was going through her cancer, there was some dark days. I mean, there were some days it was like, man, this is not good. But it was my job, I felt, to just be the cheerleader and stay positive and so I think you just have to keep going until the day comes when it's over.
Yeah, I agree with that. I believe that everybody's going to have bad days.
Yeah.
And it just becomes, what is your mindset of how to get around those days?
Yep.
And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Mark, every day is a happy-go-lucky day
No.
for me. I mean, the last 3 weeks I had to get rushed up to Mayo 3 different times to get hydration bags because my chemo nausea was so bad.
Wow.
But I truly believe that out of everything bad, there's something that comes out of it that's good.
Yeah.
But you have to be open.
You got to be open to it.
Yep. Compared to, because if you're not, you're going to sit there and say, "Poor me."
Yep. And it gets you nowhere.
And I could say, "Poor me." I mean, they told me, "You're not going to survive this." I'm not going to say that.
Right.
Because I'm going to sit here and say, what can I do to be a better person? How can I be a better husband?
Right.
I'm sure Holly has plenty of input on that one. And how can I be a better father, friend, business person, whatnot, while I'm here?
What can you do to maximize the time you're here?
That's right.
Yep. So what are you going through right now? I mean, what treatments are you have underway? Or
yeah, so
what's a week of Patrick McLaughlin?
Oh, gosh, that's a nightmare. Right now, so I just finished 9 months of really intense chemo. 99.9% of chemo patients that have brain cancer, 99.9% of brain cancer patients that have to do chemo do it orally. Did Isabella do chemo?
She did chemo, yeah.
And did she take a pill?
She took
Capsules, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah.
So
She had the tube and all
yeah,
that stuff.
I have a port right there.
Yeah, that's what she had, the port. Yep.
Okay. So normally you take this medicine, this chemo, orally, and you go do it from home. But because of my car accident and all those surgeries, my esophagus doesn't work right. My sphincter in there doesn't work. My doctor at UCLA talked to my doctor at Mayo and said, don't even think about letting him do it orally. It won't work.
Right.
It'll do a lot of damage. Then they said, well, what if he can drink it? Nope. That won't work.
Yeah.
What about putting it in his feeding tube? Nope. So I was the first patient up at Mayo. I was a guinea pig that had to do chemo through most people do chemo through a IV, which I have a port.
Yep.
And that's not to say other people that have brain cancer haven't done that, but it was just what it called for was I was up at Mayo Clinic 40 straight days doing chemotherapy.
Wow.
And our friends Wendy and Craig Vessling put together.
I love them.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Wendy jumped on and said, because you think about it, that's 84 trips.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about a way to destroy a marriage, or put a lot of pressure on it. She put out a sign-up app, Sign Up Genius, and within a day, Holly said family will do the weekends. But within 6 hours, that every ride was taken either to or from the hospital with a different friend.
Yeah.
And talk about finding the good out of the bad.
Yep. Well, and that's another thing that I applaud you on, and I know some people don't agree with this, but I know when Isabel had her diagnosis, we were very open and public about it, and I personally believe that's what saved her life. I think so many people prayed for her and sent her. I mean, we had so many people reach out and just do so many wonderful things, and it was so encouraging to her to know she had all that support.
It's unbelievable.
Right?
It makes things go a lot easier.
Yep.
I'm not going to lie to you. Everybody, like any time of there's trauma, everybody comes out of the woodwork.
Right.
But they got to get back to their life.
Yeah.
But guess what? Your life continues down that bad path.
Yeah.
And we've just been so fortunate that we've had so many great friends that have stuck by us and offered to drive here, go there. Because I really try to minimize my daughter and my wife coming to the hospital. This is pre-COVID.
Yeah.
I just wanted, with everything my daughter's been through, I just wanted to minimize it. I didn't want her to see me. I was in the hospital for a month just because I had those seizures.
Yeah, just crazy. Well, you look great. I mean, relatively speaking, to me, you are just absolutely one of the most amazing guys I've ever met.
Oh, thanks.
Seriously, I'm not saying
you need to spend more time with me, and you might change your mind. But thank you. You're very kind. I just. You got to love life.
Yeah.
You got to...
Well, I know you love life. I love that when you post things. Your posts are so good, and they put everything in total perspective. And I just hope people get it,
Well, I appreciate it. Somebody asked me, how long do you plan before you write a post? I go, I don't.
Yeah.
I believe in speaking from the heart.
Yep.
And with everything going on, I almost felt guilty about posting because I know other people are suffering out there. But I had a lot of people ask me to keep posting because they just wanted to update.
Yeah.
And so that helps me when I write.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's super therapeutic. Isabel did the same thing with her Caring Bridge.
Yeah.
And you look back at some of those passages she wrote. They're just amazing.
We did a Caring Bridge when Marley was sick, and for her birthday next year. Don't listen to this, Marley. We're putting together a Caring Bridge book.
Oh, that's
for her 16th birthday of all the people that commented and when she was 2 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's powerful.
Back on it. Very powerful. So knowing what you know now about life and battling through all of these hurdles and challenges that you have faced, what's your advice to those out there in living a meaningful life? I'm going to close on that one.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I can tell you if you asked the Pat McLaughlin 20 years ago, it would have been a very different answer. But I just, to me, what I try and do is I try to put God first, my wife second, my kids third, business and friends and everything after that.
Yep.
I'm not always that successful.
Yep.
Holly will confirm that. But I believe starting with that is a good way.
It's your roadmap.
It's a good roadmap to living a good life.
Yeah.
There's so many distractions in this world to pull you off that path.
Yeah.
And if you can just be sound with that,
Yeah.
you're going to be on.
I like that.
You know, again, I fail a lot.
Yep.
But at the same time, I just wish people would take a big breath.
Yeah.
Not take life so serious. Not be afraid to show your emotion and tell somebody that you love them.
Right.
Even if somebody's hurt you and that person hasn't asked for forgiveness, you should forgive them.
Yeah. Do it before you even ask.
That's right. Because, you know, I've forgiven people when I've been hurt. And, gosh, I was stubborn.
Yeah.
It took me a while. But the minute I did it,
It's a release.
then
It's
I
just
went and saw that person and gave them a hug.
Yeah.
And they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I haven't hurt people before.
Yeah.
But what I've tried to do is at least apologize, realize what I've done.
Yep.
And if you can do that and just have a zest for life, that when things come up in life, they won't be as, I don't know how to say
Traumatic.
it, as traumatic.
Yeah.
You know, but don't get me wrong, brain cancer, hey, you're going to have a wake brain surgery. That was pretty traumatic.
Yeah, you've had some amazing trauma that I hope I never experience.
Yeah.
And God bless you for your way of taking the journey and all the potholes that you've gotten. You keep staying on course to your journey, and it's just, I commend you for that.
Well, I appreciate it, but I honestly, if I was up on stage getting an award, I've always wanted to say I give it all up first to God.
Yeah,
Because I do.
that's awesome.
You know, every morning I get up. Ever since I had my brain surgery, I get up at 3 or 4 in the morning. Don't ask me why. I don't know
No,
why.
I'm right there with you. So,
But
you
that-
welcome to text me anytime.
Absolutely. I that is an time for me and my wife and daughter and my sons when they're in town. No, that is Dad's time.
Yeah,
And at that time I'm praying and I'm reading scripture, and that way I
Nice.
start my day in a good way.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's good to put yourself first a little bit, because if you're drained all day, it makes it hard to get through the day. And I find that if I take that time to just give myself some Mark love in the morning,
Absolutely.
it's just the best energy all day long.
Yeah, well, usually, like today, I wanted to be prepared for this because my speech is okay right now.
You're doing great.
It's usually pretty bad by this time of night or day. But I try to take a happy nap about 2 o'clock every day for about a half hour.
Yeah.
You know, and
I
just,
took it right before you came.
Oh, did you
over.
really? I was
About
gonna say I knew.
15-minute nap. I feel like I slept 8 hours.
There you go. Well, you always look good, Mark. So, but no, that helps.
It does.
It's
It helps a lot.
And again, I don't know if I'll be here in 10 years from now, but if I do, and if I am, I think I'm gonna have a really fun story
Yep.
to tell.
Well, I have a feeling that we're going to have some fun stories, however long we're both here on this planet.
Absolutely.
And now that we've met, I'm really looking forward to the eternal fun times we're going to have from here on out.
I agree. I look forward to going to Italy with you guys, and
Yep.
you know, maybe not next year, but maybe the year after.
Yep.
You know, it's just that's a place near and dear to my wife's heart.
Well, there's a few people that I would love to get on that trip, like the Vesslings
Oh, absolutely.
and the Millers,
Yeah.
and maybe Charles Keller.
Good old Charles.
Think of that trip.
That would be, you know,
That would
we
be
just
epic.
need to get Charles' boat over there, and we'll be all good. But I
Oh,
love
my
all
God.
those guys. I was
Yeah.
just on the phone with Andrea Miller this morning.
Oh,
and
they're the best. They're
positive people.
Bill and I were born on the same day, same year, virtually the
Oh,
same
come
time.
on, really?
We're virtually twin brothers.
When we lived in Arcadia, we lived right across the street from each other.
Okay.
And so the Millers are like our family.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
their kids are great. And
Yep. Amazing
Absolutely.
people.
When my daughter had her Make-A-Wish, it was with Justin Bieber.
Oh, interesting.
And my oldest son, Austin, was playing football. He didn't want to go.
Yeah.
We were going to Boston to one of his concerts. And so we brought the Miller's daughter, Ellie, because she was a
I love Ellie.
total Justin Bieber freak. And just a funny story. She goes, well, when I meet him, I'm going to have him leave my voice recording on my voice for my voicemail. I'm like, you do that, Ellie. And if you remember the Brady Bunch when Bobby Brady was on TV and he froze at that red button, hey, Ellie, or hey,
time.
Justin, I want you to meet my other daughter, Ellie. And she goes, hi. Just froze. Just froze.
Deer in the headlights.
We gave her so much heck for that.
Oh,
it
that's
was
so funny.
awesome. The
That's
good
awesome.
people.
They are very, very good people. So how do we connect with you, and where can we find you, Pat?
You know,
We'll put the show notes on. We'll put your
Yeah.
taglines in on the episode show notes.
I'm not I'm on Facebook. I'm
You're on
not on it
Facebook.
a ton, but I'm on it. And I'm sure you can leave my email and contact information. But Mark, I'm honored. I don't know how qualified I am to be on your podcast.
This is fantastic. I'm so glad you shared this story because I think a lot of people need to hear this story, to be honest with you. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
No, and if you ever have anybody that just wants to talk about anything that they're going through, I'm not licensed. I can just give them a dose of real life.
Yeah, that's probably all some people need.
But I'd love to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, man.
No, Mark.
And just by the way, I love you.
I love you more, brother. So thank you much.
Thank you. I want to say a big thank you to my good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. I want to thank the Stockett team along with so many others who contributed to the success of our fabulous demonstration kitchen in our new Candelaria design office expansion. You will have to check out our online video cooking classes, and our kitchen is amazing. I've had the pleasure of working with the Stockett team for nearly 40 years on many spectacular projects, and trust me, they are the epitome of excellence when it comes to tile, marble, and granite work, bar none. Their skill and customer service is impeccable, and the bottom line is they are just good people. I have traveled with, dined with, and just had good times, both personally and professionally, with Dave Stockett and his lovely wife, Becky, and they are the best. When it comes to your next tile and stone project, make sure Stockett Tile and Granite is a part of your team. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.